my name is Vivian Dong, and this is my EE267 presentation on exploring low-light conditions in virtual reality. I first became interested in this question when we talked about rods and cones in class and how in low-light conditions we tend to rely more on our rods, which makes it harder to differentiate colors. However, we're still very sensitive to small changes in light, even if that's not necessarily enough to navigate or do minute tasks. And something else that was interesting to me was that in the real world, when we don't have very much light, we tend to rely more on our sense of hearing and touch. And these cues that aren't necessarily present in virtual reality, such as small changes in air pressure, temperature, texture, wind, and audio feedback, can make a big difference in how we get to know our surroundings. When I looked at existing work, I found that a lot of research focused on how darkness is used as a means to provoke an emotional response of fear or anxiety. One big category was VR for horror, where games like Green Hell and Slender would have intimidating characters hiding in the shadows to do jump scares and scare players. Another big category was VR for exposure therapy for children who have a fear of the dark. Some researchers created environments that were more or less friendly but would get darker and darker over time. And they found that these environments were actually very helpful for children, but faced rejection from children and parents, showing that even when it's not necessarily intended, darkness can still evoke fear and anxiety. The third category was darkness in VR simply for a narrative element or just for a setting. And a talk at an Oculus conference gave really good pointers on some best practices. So in their example, they had to track a wolf at twilight, and they found 3 things are really helpful. The first was showing the player the brightly lit scene beforehand to allow them to develop a sense of memory and allow their eyes to adjust. The second was to use illuminated silhouettes and fog to give the players a better sense of depth. And the third was to use audio cues, 3D audio, so that as the wolf ran through different areas, they would get a sense audio-wise of where the wolf was. In order to give the players a sense of memory, I first introduced them to an illuminated scene where if the player presses a trigger button as their key touches the door handle, they'll find out whether it's their car or not. To reduce motion sickness, I use a arm swinging locomotion. And if they find the right car, then a "you win" message pops up. This is the level where it's very dark, and it's a little bit brighter in virtual reality, although you might not be able to see it well on your screen. This is a level with the illuminated silhouettes, which adds some depth cues with the fog. This is the level with positional audio. As the player touches the trackpad, they will hear a car beep that gets louder as they get closer to the right car. And as a bonus level, there is a level where the parking lot is very large and you can get that feeling of trying to find your car in a big lot. At the end of each level, I gave the users a user experience survey to get a sense of the emotions they felt and how positively they viewed the level, as well as if the additional implementations of the illuminated silhouettes and the car audio added or took away from their experience. And I look forward to sharing those results in my final report.